It's time for the Daily Stand Up Podcast presented by Agile Dad with your host, Lee Henson. Without any further ado, let's get started. All right, nothing like kicking off the new year with talking about some new topics. Today, I wanted to discuss an email that I got from Mike Cohn, and it highlights 10 common mistakes that Scrum Masters make. And the email is really interesting, and it talks about learning from our failures. So it starts out part of going back to basics with Scrum is regrounding ourselves in our role, our purpose, and our values. One agile value we could all use a reminder about is continual learning or growth mindset. I'm going to pause there for a second. I have been doing a whole series about fixed versus growth mindset here recently on the conference circuit, and it's been getting really, really, really good reviews. So I think that growth mindset may be something that we all should focus on here in 2023. There's no better way to cultivate a growth mindset than to acknowledge our mistakes. That's when we know we did them and we're open to fixing them. I agree wholeheartedly. So, in a spirit of continual learning, here are 10 common mistakes Scrum Masters like to make. Here we go. Number one, trying to facilitate a meeting using someone else's style. The truth is, we each have our own style. Use that style. Teams recognize when you're pretending, and when you're pretending you're someone else and facilitating with their style, it usually doesn't go over well with the team. I hear a lot of people ask me, I do a lot of what I call edutainment, and I hear a ton of people ask me, like, how can I be the next you? And to quote a quote from The Rock, Dwayne Johnson, he says, don't try to be the next you, try to be the first, or don't try to be the next me, try to be the first you. And I thought that was a really helpful quote. In business or personal life, you don't want to try to emulate. I mean, there's a difference between looking at someone's character traits and qualities and trying to emulate those and imitating what they're doing. I think emulation's okay, imitation's not. All right. Number two, holding meetings or other events at the wrong times. Sometimes we try to do sprint reviews a few days early, but then either we don't have everything ready to demo or key stakeholders can't attend. If you maintain a constant cadence and just remind people what that cadence is, you'll have more favorable results. Don't try to don't try to just make everything adjustable because of a holiday or because someone's absence. The more flexible you try to be, sometimes the worse off it can make things. So try to maintain a consistent cadence, a heartbeat. Number three, telling people what to do. This is a common tendency, especially for any of us who ever worked as a traditional project manager before adopting the agile approach. Try not to tell people what to do. Try to join in and, maybe even ask in a way, what can we do to knock this out together? Is there anything I can do to assist you with getting this done? Try to find ways. Use the term, my favorite one. Here's another one for 2023. Help me understand. Help me understand why this is this way. Help me understand how we're going to fix things. All right, number four, staying silent. Other Scrum Masters suffer from the opposite problem. They just remain completely silent and stoic during team discussions. It's one thing for you to not lend an opinion or to not try to be a force of influence, but it's a completely different thing to let the team just flip flop back and forth and flounder in what they're trying to do and not giving them any input about how they could be better. There's a difference between allowing the team to grow and giving them the assistance they need so they know the right direction. Coming in at number five, not asking enough questions. Sometimes Scrum Masters don't ask enough questions. They just don't understand diagnosis. In a previous episode of the Daily Stand Up Podcast, we talked about how people sometimes try to track what other people are saying, and I don't want to go that far. What I'm thinking is, and I love this tip that Mike threw here. He says he talks about when he used to literally track the number of questions he asked versus the number of statements he made in each meeting he tried to improve. Questions are the key to learning, not statements. So instead of just stating things matter of factly, asking the right set of questions, collaborative, that's going to be the way that you're going to have a key to learning. Coming in at number six, forgetting the usual meetings because the team size was small. Some people take the already lightweight Scrum framework and try to lighten it even further by leaving out some of the meetings because our team's only 3 people. The truth is, even small teams benefit from doing all the Scrum activities. Make sure that if it's Scrum related activity and you're doing Scrum, do the meetings. Just have the meetings with 3 people. The truth is, the meetings won't take as long because it's a smaller number of people, but you still should go through the motions of having them because there's great benefit to having those meetings. All right, number 7, not pushing teams a little harder at improvements they decided they're going to make. In a retrospective, teams often choose to set goals to improve at things like doing better demos, doing demos more often, improving collaboration between the people who are developing code and the testers. Sometimes Scrum Masters just don't push hard enough for teams to follow through on the improvements they've chosen for themselves. Set up an environment of accountability. Make it like a New Year's resolution. Hold someone accountable and let them know where you are. All right. Number 8, allowing too much discussion at the daily Scrum. Occasionally, Scrum Masters try new formats for the daily Scrum and find a meeting suddenly takes twice as long or 4 times as long. Or they let teams discuss the problems too long. Well, they don't discuss the problems, they're discussing the solutions too long. Or allow the daily Scrum to turn and morph into a design meeting. While it's great to experiment with formats for this meeting, you need to be sure to keep the meeting short and on track and true to the original goal of synchronizing work toward achieving the sprint goal and accountability. If you can lock this in and make it an accountability meeting, it's going to make everything else move so much more smooth. Coming at number 9, letting a story into the sprint without enough clarity about what it actually is or what was needed. Sometimes this happens because a product owner just pushes for the story to be included. Other times, it's the team that wants to bring the story in despite the lack of clarity. As the protectors of the teams, the Scrum Master is responsible and needs to push back when this happens and say, we can't do this, right? And I think that after enough reminders that you remind a team that they can't do those things, they're going to stop wanting to do those things. And then finally, number 10, not letting go of a mistake. All of us at times replay mistakes or let mistakes gnaw at us. Once the mistake's been made, we should learn from it and then let it go. I was watching a movie, and in the movie, the advice that the healer person, the psychology-driven healer person, gave to an individual who was struggling with a lot of mental issues was to write down the things that bothered him the most, to read those out loud, to go to a place where he had significant connection with what he wrote on the paper, to, when he got there, write this down on a sheet of paper and then say that he forgave the person or thing that happened, and then burn that sheet of paper right there and never go back to it again. When I thought about that advice, I thought, wow, that's not a bad idea. Sometimes we need to let it go. And I think that too often, or more often than not, we don't go about that step. All I can say, Mike, is you did it again. This is another great email from Mike Cohn. These 10 items are things that over time, I'm sure that each of us have covered in other topics, but getting that whole list together in one place is pretty awesome. So if you want to succeed in doing Agile, then you need to, if you want to succeed with Agile, I got to say it right for Mike, then these are things that you should probably start paying attention to today. That's going to do it for today's episode. I hope you enjoyed it. If you have a topic you want us to cover, learn more at agiledad.com. We'd love to hear from you. Stay healthy, stay well, and stay agile, my friends. Until next time, do take care.